Welcome to the Digital Agency Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Englander. So today on the show, I'm very excited to welcome Max Traylor. Max, you have a great bio because it's short and fun, which is usually I stumble over it. But basically, Max is an ex-agency owner and professional paintball player turned golfer and father of two. He writes the Agency Survival Guide book series and helps dozens of agencies expand their client relationships using productized consulting services. Max, pleasure to have you on the show.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I didn't know what bio you were referencing. Sometimes I just wake up and change it, and then all my people are like, "What are you doing?" I was like, so I felt like doing that this morning.
Yeah, it's nice to change your identity and thus your bio often, I think.
I'm like Wata, whatever you want me to be. But yeah, that's good description. I'm glad that was semi-updated.
It's funny because I haven't thought about paintball since I was a kid, when I've gone a handful of times. It's a lot of fun. Any lessons that you have in your life now from paintball?
Yeah, if you think you're good, there's always another level. I mean, I played paintball for 20 years, and we went through local all the way up to semi-pro, and winning and just dominating Division 1 and feeling like you're on top of the world. And then we turned pro, and for like 5 minutes, we were like, "Oh, this is going to be no problem." I remember we were playing the Russians, like our first match, and we were up like by 5 points, and we were just like, "Oh, we're great." And then began 10 years of lessons. Yeah. And the biggest thing I took away from, like, let alone, like, forget about paintball, because that's like even below rock skipping on the, scale of grandeur and coolness. Just getting to the top of the world at something, you realize that there is a completely different level that's out there to anything, whether it's agencies or doing your own thing or playing paintball. And the only way to succeed at that top level is to learn from the best.
Yes, for sure. And it's interesting because I haven't gotten to the level you've gotten in jiu-jitsu with the stuff I'm into with like jiu-jitsu. I mean, with paintball, I should say. And I haven't gotten to that level with like jiu-jitsu and grappling. But it gets like almost spooky when you experience somebody that's way better than you at something, and then that they're not even close to the person who's the best at that thing. It's almost like it's hard to wrap your head around.
And the bad so I wouldn't say bad habits, because it was interesting. To win in Division 3, you needed to do a certain amount of things. Those things wouldn't work winning in Division 3 was like the same as winning in Division 2. Winning in Division 1 took a different set of skills. And then winning in pro was like, you need to unlearn everything. Right. And it's so similar to what I've found in business, is like you're paying attention to completely different things when you make some of these leaps. And I don't know, my encouragement to everybody is just seek mentorship with the highest possible level, because you will walk away going like, oh my God, that's a completely different vocabulary. You walk differently. Like, you're a completely different person getting absolutely beaten up by people that are 10 levels above you. But that's the only way to really understand like what's out there.
Right. Because then each subsequent stage gets logarithmically hard to achieve at. It's not just
it's just different. It's just different. And like I would say, and I don't want to get too much into the paintball, but you could have a professional paintball team. The reason we went 5 up on the Russians is because we were playing a different style that they've never seen before. And as soon as they discovered that we were idiots, they crushed us. But I guess it goes both ways, right? Like, if you're playing at a professional level, they expect certain things, they play a certain way, where if you just come in and play stupidly, they don't know how to react to that. Anyway, I think it just, from a business standpoint, the lesson is start with your plan. Whatever you are trying to achieve, you can seek mentorship and knowledge with people that have been there before. But just know that like you also have to talk to people that are way ahead, that are 10 steps ahead. And that is going to give you the insight into your plan and what comes next that you need. Otherwise, you could just get stuck in, oh, we're trying to double our business. And doubling your business, as they say, is way harder than 10xing your business. And that is where that, like, you need to go talk to people. If you're $1 million agency, you need to go seek counsel with people that are at $20-30 million agencies that have been doing it for 10 years.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Why is doubling your business harder than 10xing it?
Because it's always harder to do more of the same. That is an effort. Doubling your business will require 2 to 3x the effort. Right. You cannot go 10x in your business by doing more of the same. It's impossible.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
You have to look for different business models, different positioning, areas that it's more of growth through discovery. Here's something we didn't see before. It's not more effort to do that thing, but it is 10 times as impactful. And so the same amount of effort in this completely unseen opportunity is going to get us 10x. That's why it's easier. You just have to see and discover those avenues, which is where the mentorship, the knowledge out there exists. I just don't think people are putting enough emphasis on having those conversations.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Let's dig into that a little bit more. So these people that are at the top of their game, let's say it's in the agency space. Can you talk a little bit about how are they carrying themselves differently? How are they thinking about problems? Just anything you can kind of color in there from what you've experienced.
Well, I guess my point is not really. I can't really describe it because like for the last 10 years, I've met 20 new agency owners every month. My dad always said, surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And what I learn is that I don't know what I don't know. That is the most important category of knowledge, is the things that you don't know. And so I think it's more important for people to emphasize and be held accountable for conversations with people that are far beyond what they're doing, to discover things that they don't know. Just as a general, like anything that I say I've learned in the past year is somewhat irrelevant to just the general practice of like having a podcast or making a concerted effort to going out and networking with people. But I think that in the past year specifically, AI has dominated the conversation. For 10 years, I've said that you can't get away with charging for content or charging for website design, like whether it's the freelancers or the gig network or AI, that's going to take it from you. Finally, AI put a nail in that coffin. Everything that is a commoditized deliverable that you could have bought from freelance talent before, you can now buy from AI, and it's going to take AI 10 minutes. So the cost or the profitability that you can gain from those things has gone to zero. So I think finally agencies are forced to make a change in how they position themselves, how they talk about themselves, what they charge for. And yeah, there's a lot of trends that I could speak to, but I think that's never going to change. There's always going to be new trends. I mean, just to name a few, I think people are way over invested in demand generation, assuming that everyone's out there ready to buy. No, 95% of the market is not ready to buy. So you've got a completely underserved section of services that is like brand marketing. Develop know, like, and trust relationships with the 95% of people that are not ready to buy. I think that's an easy thing to take a look at. And I also think people have completely abandoned the opportunity to market to your existing customers.
Right.
Everybody wants new logos. It's the sexy thing. Newsflash, new logos have become increasingly more difficult since COVID. We've got customers. Why aren't we investing this marketing talent in better, stronger, know-like relationships with our existing clients? Those are a few of the trends that I speak to.
Yeah, thanks for that. There's so many places to go with this. So back to it's easier to 10x than to 2x. And I want to put myself in the heads of some listeners. Maybe they've got a low 7-figure agency. Maybe they don't even want a 10x. Maybe they're like, I'm not trying to shoot for the moon. But let's say they are. There's not a lot of like $20 million agencies out there. So it almost seems like to do that, you're kind of not becoming an agency anymore. You're sort of branching out to something else. So assuming you agree and you don't have to, what does that something else look like? How would you describe, how that's playing out most of the time?
The first thing that we need to talk about is the definition of growth. And most people, run around talking about growth as revenue and headcount, and they got their pom-poms at the industry conference. I mean, when I was running my agency, revenue and headcount meant my life got worse. So I think people really need to think about, what does growth mean for them? Is it free time? Is it your mental state? Is it something more quantitative like profitability? But it needs to go far beyond just like, here's the number of counts we have, and here's our head count, just as like an arbitrary symbol of growth. I think that's the first big mistake, is like people don't really have a vision of what they want to achieve with their company, not just like financially and strategically for the company, but also for them personally. Like, what am I trying to build, and how does that relate to my personal life? That's always the place where I start. And when people say, "Oh yeah, we're our main focus is to grow," there are no good answers if you don't have a good definition of growth for yourself.
Yeah, I really like that. I felt that myself, because we used to be this done for you business where we'd go out and get leads for agencies and that kind of thing. And I got sick of it because we were helping clients get leads when it worked, but then a lot of the times when it did work, they were just sort of having this black box where they weren't really internalizing these skills. And it wasn't fun for us because it was like this kind of a what have you done lately for me sort of business.
Sure.
So I just found that like teaching people stuff has so many more avenues for creativity. I also just think that like there's sort of becoming this gray area, like in between zone between the difference between doing something literally for somebody and showing them how to do it. And I think these lines are getting very blurry because of the technology and because of how many options there are for just getting stuff done once you know what you need to do.
Well, I think teaching is the growing opportunity because you've got more people in market than ever before. We're on our second round of mass global layoffs. And these are senior people that have a lot of skills gaps with like the latest update from Google or the latest technology, which is, that stuff is dominating the market. So you've got a ton of people and companies want to hire those people because they've been told do more with less. We're going to reduce your marketing budget. They've let go their senior people. And so you've got all these, whether they're fractional or consultant, or let alone people coming out of college or in these, part-time junior roles. So there's a skills gap. That is the biggest thing going on right now. There is all this new disruption, all this new technology. There's a ton of people that don't understand it. And so, I would argue that one of the biggest opportunities is to educate to fill that gap. And sounds like you're right up in there.
Yeah, or trying to be. And it's funny because even like that's a really good thing to point out is just like what an opportunity there is with the talent that's out there for agencies. But even before this period, like if you just kind of were starting at first principles and looking at some of the most like historically successful industries, like education has got to be up there, even just going back to like the ancient universities of the world.
Yeah. What businesses survive?
Education,
money,
and booze.
education, finance. Everyone's got a finance guy or whoever. Everyone invests in education.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that I've sort of found interesting is like I've thought about this week is like the paradox of hiring, right? Like the less that you have sort of figured out and the less that you've condensed your learning into something you can teach others, the more money you have to pay to get somebody to service your clients because you have to kind of hire this unicorn that's like taking care of so many things at once, which is interesting because that means that the people that don't have it figured out as much have to go out and spend more for talent, it seems like. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, the reality is that agencies have to hire junior people. It's a part of the economy. They have to embrace people coming out of college. They have tactical knowledge, knowledge of new technologies, Instagram, the trendy things. And companies don't have that, nor should they be investing in full-time talent for somebody to manage their Instagram. So there's always going to be a market for this junior talent to be, round up by these agencies. The challenge is that there's a lack of senior talent, people that have held those CMO positions, people that have held leadership positions at the client accounts. So there's just no access. The agency is operating and the tactical people are operating in a dark room, not really understanding what the important business outcomes are. And they'll continue to be marginalized and they'll continue to be price squeezed. So what needs to happen to the benefit of everybody is agencies that have people, the people talent, need to be invited to the strategic conversations. But that will not happen unless the agencies have someone on their team that has been in the seat of the people that they're trying to get access to. You can't walk into a manufacturing company's board meeting as a 5-year out of college marketing executive. But you can if you have someone on your team that spent 20 years in manufacturing as a CMO and is now ready to retire and is doing some gigs on the side as a fractional CMO. You can do that. So I think we need to recognize the problem. The problem is we don't have access to strategic conversations. Clients don't know what to ask for. We need to get that access. And the key is out there. We're on our second round of mass layoffs. Like they're chilling. They're out there. Yeah. Go find the people, make deals with the people, bring them in as part of your team. I think that's the most logical solution today.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'd love to dig into the strategic conversations angle. And I'm thinking about the, let's say, UI, UX agency owner that might be listening right now. And they're like, we're working with this big company, but we're friend zoned, right? We're like locked into this place of UI, UX. We're worried about getting disrupted by AI.
Well, the problem is you're the UX person. You're the tactical vendor The problem is I can Google 1,200 of you, UX vendor, and every quarter you're going to be up against these other cheaper UX vendors, or God forbid, the CEO has a cousin that just graduated college and took a course in UX. You're out. So,
they're probably ahead of the problem, or they know it exists. I'm not looking for a step-by-step blueprint, but what are some ways that you can think about becoming more than that as an agency if you're in that position, or maybe examples that you've seen?
More strategic?
Yeah, for guiding more of the overall strategy, and like you said, kind of having more of these strategic conversations with clients.
Yeah, well, number one is to take a look at your existing clients and figure out which ones have the potential to be strategic. And that's a 3-step process so I've got like a set of questions that I'll have account managers answer. And that is, are we performing? If you're not performing, you're never going to get strong relationships with your clients. Are you delivering on what you said you deliver? Now, let's say we're a good agency and we deliver numbers and everything's good. Great. Now we have an opportunity to develop a more personal relationship with our current client contact. Usually we're reporting on, here's the amount of blogs we've done, or here's the amount of web pages we've updated, or here's the amount of traffic, stuff that's really marginal in comparison to the things that they're expected to deliver on. So step 2 is to say, okay, client contact, what are you really being held accountable for? What are the metrics that you're expected to present? Who are you presenting them to? What would make you look good? What are you struggling with? A deeper personal relationship that can take you from this tactical vendor to your point of contact being like, ooh, these guys are really on my side. If you have that personal relationship, it's going to reduce some of those barriers, which we've all experienced, to getting to those leadership discussions. So the 3rd stage is access to leadership conversations, planning conversations, the quarterly cadence of what our initiative's going to be, who are we going to spend money with, how much, what are the goals going to be. We're never going to get there unless we have the personal credibility, the personal relationship with our point of contact. We're never going to get that relationship if we don't have the performance. So there's a really easy just 1, 2, 3 steps here, but I don't see agencies really measuring their account success by those things. It's like, the person says we're doing a great job. Okay, great. But do we know how they're being measured? Right. No, we don't. Do we know who they're reporting to? No, we don't. Do we know the cadence and the format that they're reporting results to their superiors? No, we don't. Let alone having an understanding of what the business initiatives actually are and what the business goals are. So,
yeah. And what's interesting about it is like a lot of it's not all solved by sales best practices, but you at least have a head start. Like if you look at Sandler or any of these basic sales processes, like it's surface business personal, right? The personal is like the most important thing. Getting to like what are the implications of this initiative for you personally? That's like happening the first call ideally. But a lot of agencies are just sort of pitching and doing other stuff.
Well, yeah, but here's what agencies are notorious for is their senior talent is on the sales side. They develop their relationships, they talk strategy. They're like, okay, great. And then they give it to some junior account manager because their business model can't support the type of senior talent on the account management side.
Right. Yeah.
So in theory, we've established that strategic relationship, but then it goes to Timmy, the college grad, to manage that account. And they don't know what information they should be gathering. In their best interest is to hide in a dark room somewhere, deliver on what they said they were going to deliver on, and maintain the status quo. So that's the challenge. There's no objective of like, hey, do we have visibility into these types of things? Let alone, they don't have the business acumen to hold those conversations. If they did get into a leadership conversation, they wouldn't know what to do. So there's a big gap in this advisor role, in the strategic role. Generally, agencies try to close the gap by promoting some junior person that's done the best job, but they still don't have the credibility on the client side to lead those conversations. So,
right. To shift gears a little bit, you do a lot of work with productization. Would you say like how easy is it to pull off these two things at once, right? So becoming more strategic and deeper with a client, but also productizing, at the same time. Are these two different projects? Can they play together? How does that work?
Well, first of all, if you're not treating your service like a product, you're screwed. The craziest thing, as I spent 10 years talking to service companies, is like, how much does it cost to deliver a service? Well, I don't really know. How do you sell the service? Well, it's different every time. Oh, so how many of your clients are on the same service process? Oh, it's different every time. Like, that's a formula for disaster. So all I mean by productize is like, you're not running a service business. Treat every service as a product. There's inputs, there's outputs. There should be the same steps and things for every client. Sure, every client's going to have a different situation. That's just conversational, situational, whatever. So that's the biggest problem for professional service agencies is, they get enamored into this like, oh, we're custom. Not to mention the service menu. If you've ever run a restaurant, it's a difficult business model. The service menu is the enemy. You need a singular service process. So that's number one. What was the question again?
I think you kind of answered it, which is like how well can these two things play together with going deeper with the client more strategically while also productizing?
Well, okay, so right. So productize is one thing, getting deeper strategically is another thing. So every agency needs to treat their services like products. That's operational efficiency 101, right? And the plague is everybody thinking that clients are unique. They're not. The second thing is, are we strategic or are we transactional? Transactional relationships will always be susceptible to competitive pricing. Hey, there's AI that can create content now. You're not allowed to charge $200 a blog article. I could get a blog article for 30 cents and I can get 10,000 of them, right? So it doesn't make sense. It's competitive. It's competitive pressure. So strategic relationships, strategic services, the value is in your insight. The value is in your accumulated insight. I am more valuable because I have 30 years of experience versus this person over here that's on your team that has 5 years of experience, right? So I'm charging for access to that lifetime of accumulated knowledge. You're now breaking out of the time for dollars paradigm. You're now breaking out of the competitive pricing paradigm. This is where price premiums exist. And for a professional service business, like that's all that matters. What's the upsell for the hours that I've bought to the price point that I can recharge for those hours?
Right. I was just going to say, I like your definition because I think sometimes when people hear productized, they're thinking about like a semi-automated web service or they're thinking about a course online or something.
Yeah, they're thinking about they're thinking about a Facebook course.
And it's obviously a lot bigger than that. And it's really just a way to build a healthy business, a healthy service business.
Yeah, synonyms would be systematize, process size. My favorite synonym is just like, know what the hell you're doing. Like, write it down.
Yeah, exactly.
Standard operating procedures, like business.
Yeah, makes sense. And we're recording this, late November 2024. I guess what are your clients and others thinking about for 2025? Like how are the people that you look up to planning? What does their exercise look like for that?
The entire market has been flooded with demand generation firms. More so than ever, the competitive landscape has skyrocketed. You got all these people throwing around revenue operations, RevOps. So it's very obvious what's happening here. Software companies, MarTech software companies, marketing technology software companies have the most budget and have the microphone. It's no surprise that a MarTech company who decided to encroach on sales CRM space that then decided to move into customer success now has to make up some silly definition of what their partner agencies should offer. It's gone from marketing to marketing and sales alignment to revenue operations. It's like, when are people going to wake up and realize that the best interests of their professional service company does not live in the training or certification program of this MarTech provider? So let's just throw that out there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of kind of irritation at that industry, understandably. I think it's just because they just let us around for so long. Like we got the predictable revenue model from tech, and it's like that never worked for consultative services because of the lack of trust. And then we got, just this kind of, it's funny, I had Marcel Petitpas, who you might know, on the show, and he talked about how it was almost like, he didn't use this word, but it was almost like this elaborate fraud where they were essentially masking COGS as overhead, right? Because like servicing MarTech requires so much resources and client service roles and all this stuff. So it was like just the value of these companies was just overinflated in so many ways. And they've, now it's just kind of the AI companies that are going to be fun.
Well, so the really weird thing is I literally just got off a call with him 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Small worlds as
Marcel,
usual.
good dude.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: this whole push and the blitz of investment in Martech has created companies that are parading as companies that are really privatized sales force for Martech organizations. If you take away the marketing asset, the credibility, the pipeline that is provided by the Martech company, you don't have a company. You've got 5 junior people that know how to push buttons that lack a sales pipeline or any standalone positioning. That's what you've created. And unfortunately, that's like a majority of the agencies that are out there. And too many people are shaking pom-poms and kumbaya dancing around the fireplace to think that that's okay.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think the hard thing is you also have to be the monkey that knows how to press the buttons, but you have to have a perspective. You have to be a monkey with a perspective. Basically.
Yeah, there's a whole business model for that. But if you don't have the industry credibility to be a thought leader in that space, to generate the attention, to build like trust relationships with whoever you want to go after, that's like a really important model when you've got a business that eats while you sleep, aka hiring people. And the problem is that Martech has told these agencies that like, it's okay, we'll generate the demand for you. All you need is this book. It's called Traction, or it's called Inbound Marketing. And like in reality, hey, your business model is you need to charge for a lot more. You need to be more strategic with your clients. You need to develop a thought leadership position. And that wasn't in their best interest to educate them on. Their best interest was to educate people on how to push buttons in their software. And honestly, when Martech started to diversify their feature set, it killed agencies, because any remnants of like positioning that they had before is like, oh yeah, we're a marketing agency. Oh, now we're a marketing sales agency. Oh, now we're a marketing, sales, customer success, and we help you install toilets, and that's called revenue operations efficiency guild. Like, it's just nonsense. So
yeah, I forgot where I was reading this, but it's almost like a word becomes so misused and kind of used for smoke screens and people selling things and getting Series Bs or whatever, that it's like a clip and a gun in an action movie. Like it gets spent up and then you have to come up with a new one. So now it's RevOps. And I hadn't even thought about RevOps. I was like, okay, I got it. Like revenue plus operations. I guess that's the same thing we've had forever. It's just
if anyone could define it for me, I'd be thrilled. But my definition is like, you're so confused that you've taken the buzzword given to you by Martech that has intentionally expanded their value proposition across sales and customer success. Like it's literally a software term.
Right. So maybe it's time to maybe stop following their lead quite as much. Makes sense. I guess like beyond that, can you talk about how productization has changed? Like, are there any examples that you think are inspiring from your clients or elsewhere? Like from looking at this year, 2025 coming up from versus a few years ago.
Well, yeah. So back to that like original confusion about productized is like, oh, as an agency, we're a service business. We need to create products, right? And that might mean education, online courses, or it might mean like literal products like software. And we saw a lot of agencies invest in that. The problem is, if you look at any of the research done by large consultancies that I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of theirs, I'm saying they have access to people. And so I look to the large consultancies for information on the industry. All CMOs are saying that they've overinvested in technology, right? Like all the bullshit, all the money that went into creating this MarTech boom. Now everyone's like, oh, I've got 8,000 freaking subscriptions and none of them are doing anything for me, right? So if you're an agency and you're like, oh, I got this new tool, I turned my spreadsheet into this little automatic little tinker toy over here. Guess what? Like it ain't doing it. So from this idea of like productization and what's the future of our company, maybe I would second guess the market opportunity for selling a software widget that you repurposed out of the, internal operations tool that you created out of the Monday platform. I just don't think the opportunity is the same as it was 5 years ago. Now, I think the mindset of differentiating yourself based on a methodology that you can talk about the same way, that you can deliver the same way, that has predictability, I think that's important. But I spent I mean, I'm 10 years into doing my own thing. I've really rallied around this whole productized concept. I got to say, it really doesn't matter what you call your thing. I think people don't really care about your unique process. I think you need it internally to justify like my work with people. I think you need it internally. You need it to be able to play that telephone tag and say, this is how we work with people. This is the process. This is how we talk about it. But at the end of the day, your clients are going to look across that table and say, have you been in my position? And if you have not, I don't give a shit about what you call your thing or what the steps are or how good your PowerPoint presentation is. People do not trust marketing right now. People do not trust content. Hello, AI. People trust people across the table that have been where they have been. And if you don't have that, you're screwed. So
yeah, speaking my language, and I'm not the one to come up with this word, but a lot of people who served were in this trust recession. And that also informs how we do to help our clients do sales, where we're looking at verticalizing heavily and then looking at individuals that share commonalities and background to make calls happen. And then, so I love that, the have you been in my position sort of thing. With that in mind, how much does that contribute towards verticalizing? Do you think verticalizing is important for agencies?
I've been saying that for the last 10 years. So here's the thing. Every agency will agree that they help their clients specialize. Yeah.
Yeah.
You go and talk to 10 agencies at random and you look at how they've specialized. None of them are specialized. So there's something broken here. They agree that it's important, but yet they don't do it. So the real conversation is why they don't do it. The reason is fear and hunger. So I'm an agency. My best client is manufacturing, whatever, this and that, but they're hesitant to put a lot of effort into that. I believe that their hesitancy is that they don't have anyone on their team that has held a leadership role in an organization like that. They got it at random. And I think the solution is not to make some brilliant marketing campaign or take 100% of their marketing dollars and to go after that organization. I think the solution is to say, oh, our best client is a manufacturing organization that's 1,000 people that builds widgets for spaceships. Let's go find a part-time fractional that has built widgets for spaceships and has held that CMO title, and just say, hi, how you doing? Will you show up on a sales conversation with us? We'll give you the title on LinkedIn. Like, it's very simple. It's not a big investment, but just starting to experiment with this, like, instead of just being a company that's everything to everyone, we've got an industry advisor that can lead the way. They can lead the charge into some of these industries that we have at least some credibility in. We have one case study. That's enough.
It's interesting because I've had conversations with agencies that have niched. I had one yesterday and they were focused on the alcohol industry, like liquor and wine and that kind of thing. And they were on, downswing because we're having this boomerang effect. Like speaking of booze, which we'll get to in a second, everybody drank a lot more during COVID. And then now it's the boomerang's going back the other way. So now like all these liquor companies overstocked on everything and now they're going down. But,
Marcel and I were talking about the non-alcoholic choices now.
Yes, there's more than there used to be. The athletics of the world and that sort of thing. It reminds me of that John Belushi sketch with the mini chocolate donuts, and he's like running around the track. It's like an athletic beer. Interesting. But she was like, yeah, this is par for the course. This is what happens with the double-edged sword of specializing. Is it's like every other business on earth. Like, you've got to deal with the ups and downs, but not making the choice to do that at all is its own sort of risk. That's probably worse than the other risks.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with the observation. I mean, I think people are they should be thinking about in 2025 more than, we're in November, right? So November of 24. So I think it's a little late for people, but it's very encouraging to me that people are finally in the agency space. People are finally thinking about changing their services. There's so many people that have held on to, like, we create content or we create user experience. And it's like, dude, whether you like it or not, AI just destroyed your business. That's what happened.
Yeah, and there's a lot more that are just living on borrowed time because their clients haven't gotten the memo yet.
They're going to go to some dinner in late January with one of their peers that is like, you're still paying for podcast production? Like, I used to, like, there was an agency that I spent like $1,000 with a month to do like podcast production. I'd do like 4 episodes or whatever. It was pretty cheap at the time. Now I put my episodes into Opus Pro. They give me, 20 clips that are perfect. It's $20 a month. So that is disruption that you can't ignore. You could argue that my friend Billy could do better clips, but it just ain't Like, that ain't going to fly. Not when the economy says you need to do more with less with your marketing budgets. That ain't going to fly.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely true. Awesome. So like kind of getting towards the end of our time, I think the most important question I have is, what are you drinking these days?
Oh, well, I interviewed a health specialist, and they said that the clear stuff is the best. So I'm more of this is more murky, but this would be Whistle Pig Piggyback Rye Whiskey.
Didn't they, weren't they like a Shark Tank company originally or something like that?
Whistle Pig?
Yeah, I might be wrong.
Did you say Shark Tank?
I could be completely off, but
I think you're completely off, because they have like, because Shark Tank has only been around for so long, and Whistle Pig has like 20-year like vintage stuff. But no, I for a while, I did my Beers with Max podcast, and I was into the like, flashy IPA things. And wow, if you like bloat and extreme calories, then yeah, a 14% beer that tastes like dirt, that'll do it. But yeah, anyway, I was talking to Marcel today about lower alcohol content, craft beers, and then the zero alcohol content stuff that has been awesome. So yeah, I think we're in a good time, but every once in a while,
yeah, got it.
Every once in a while, you get some Whistle Pig.
Yeah, the IPAs remind me of going to college in Northern California, and sometimes I've sworn them off, but occasionally I'll get that hankering for one of those. I feel like
I was in college during the Four Loko thing.
Oh yeah, that was
remember that
responsible era of upstanding children. Yeah,
no, that was the anti-responsible. Like the original stuff, you could sell the original stuff for like a lot right now.
Right, it's one of those.
And one of my buddies in college, I remember he bought like 100 cases of the original Four Loko and just had them in his closet somewhere. They're like Beanie Babies.
Yeah, that and Surge and the other stuff. From
Surge, I remember that, dude. I was now we're going back. I was ice skating.
It's all this stuff that that was popular when millennials like me. I'm not sure how old you are. Were kids like from the 90s.
I'm an 89er.
Okay, I'm an 87er. Yeah, same idea.
Surge.
Well, yeah, we'll end with Surge. That's a good place to end this. Go get yourself some Surge, and it's going to make your agency skyrocket immediately.
Yeah, and you also should consult a doctor.
Exactly. Probably should do that for all of us anyway. But Max, great to have you, man. Always a pleasure. And where can people go to follow what you're up to and get in touch and all that?
LinkedIn, Max Traylor on LinkedIn. For God's sakes, please don't look at my website. LinkedIn is all the posts, all the content, the books. My books are free on my LinkedIn profile. So
fantastic. And I feel like, having a site you're not proud of and selling to agencies is ideal, because that's how everyone feels at all times.
Honestly, I having run an agency that built websites for people, I can't stand it. I can't even do it for myself. I have no interest. So honestly, the latest of like what I'm up to and what I care about is on LinkedIn. I changed some text. We're good.
That works.
That's my thought.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll get that linked up. Thanks again.
Cheers, Dan.